Hi, friends. It's Miss Catherine, and I'm here for our Celebrate Wonder um, Children's Formation class. I'm here at the church in my beautiful hills, and we have our risen Christ and our Christ candle. We have my St. Albans otter, who reminds us that we're better together. We have our Wonder Cube, our Celebrate Wonder chart, and our Celebrate Wonder family activity book. I also wanted to show you my finished star from last week with the sparkles and jewels. I really enjoyed that craft and I love the way this turned out. I hope you made one too. Today let's light our Christ candle first. Well, I say that and now I realize that I think I may have taken the matches somewhere. So we'll have to imagine that we're lighting our Christ candle. The light of Christ follows us wherever we go. Okay, so here we are at our Wonder table. Maybe you're at your Wonder table. All you're going to need today for our activity time is some Play-Doh or homemade Play-Doh, salt dough, clay, whatever you like, something you can model with. I just have this one color. Easy peasy. So my first question is, I wonder if you've ever had a special visitor. Maybe someone came in town for your birthday, or someone came and surprised you with a really good visit. We once read a story during my Wednesday night bedtime stories called The Relatives Came. And that was a story all about family who traveled all the way from Virginia to, where were they? Maybe Kentucky. It was a long road trip. And they all slept on pallets in the floor and ate tons of food and stayed up late and slept in. And it was a really special visit. Well, today our story is about special visitors, really special visitors. Even so special were sent by God, is what the Bible tells us in this story. Now remember that our faith word for this series of stories is faith. And we talked about faith, having a belief and hope in something you can't necessarily see or touch. So I wonder who helps you have faith. Is it your mom and dad, your grandparents, Miss Catherine, maybe an older sibling who has a lot of faith in God, faith in themselves? I wonder what helps you to have faith in God. And I wonder how you know someone has faith. Sometimes for me, when I'm feeling really uncertain and doubtful, having a hard time having faith, I talk to my mom and she has such a strong faith. And she says to me, "Who has you in the palm of his hand?" And I know that it's God. And I know that my mom has faith because she believes that and she lives that every day. So let's say a quick prayer and then we'll move on to our story for today. Dear God, help me to be faithful. Amen. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is read our story from our Celebrate Wonder family activity book. You can read along with me if you have it. Last week, we heard about God's promise to Abraham. And this week, we're hearing about Abraham's visitors. This is from Genesis, still in the very, very beginning of the Bible, chapter 18, verses 1 through 14. And this is a paraphrase, meaning this isn't exactly how it's written in the Bible, but it tells us the story. Abraham and Sarah were now very old. They may even have given up hope of having a child since they were so old. God, however, did not forget the promise he made to Abraham. One day, 3 visitors came to Abraham and Sarah's tent. Abraham offered them hospitality and food and rest before they continued on their journey. As they ate, one of the visitors told Abraham that when he returned in a year, Sarah would have a child. Sarah laughed. But the visitor reminded them both that nothing was too difficult for God. I wonder, how do you feel when you have to wait for something you really want? Claire's having her birthday tomorrow, and she's been waiting and waiting and waiting for her birthday. And that's really actually very fun and exciting, the anticipation, but it can also be really hard. Right now, we're all waiting for this pandemic to move on and let us go back to life as we knew it. Well, just like Abraham and Sarah, when you wait, sometimes things don't go the way you plan. Sometimes things are completely different than you had expected things to be. But God is with us, whatever happens. The suggested spiritual practice for this story is to hold a rock in one hand and feel the solidness and the weight of the rock, which is solid like faith. Hold dirt, a pile of dirt, in your other hand and spread your fingers out for the dirt to fall through. Sometimes it's hard to hold on to faith. Solid rock of faith, sifting dirt. Sometimes it's hard to grasp. Look for rocks this week, and when you see one, imagine how hard and solid rocks are, and pray that your faith will be solid as a rock. So we're ready to watch our video now. I love our little Cokesbury Kids videos. I think they're so nice. So I'm going to share my screen. And going to share the sound. I hope you guys can hear it. Let's see. Nope. I think it's this one here. Oh, hey, that's me. Let me try this again. I think I'm not sharing my screen right now. Thank you for your patience. Okay, here we go.
Greetings. It's Sam. Our story today, Abraham and Sarah are still waiting for God's promise to have their baby. They are getting older and older and don't know how this will happen. While they are waiting, they welcome visitors into their home. They prepare everything they need for their guests to be comfortable and taken care of. Abraham and Sarah brought water for them to wash their feet and prepared a meal for them to eat. After the meal, one of the visitors tells them that they are going to have a baby. This was very surprising news. It felt impossible. When Sarah heard this, she laughed. It was so hard to believe. She knew that she and Abraham were very old, and she felt like these visitors told her something that can never happen. Last year, math class was really hard, and it seemed impossible. I wasn't sure I could do it, but I got help from others who believed in me. Sometimes God's promises seem impossible too. Faith is hard, and some days you have some doubt. We have to take it one moment at a time and trust God. It's okay to be confused and still have questions like Sarah did. God still shows up, even when we have a hard time. God is with us through it all. Now it's your turn to wonder.
Cokesbury Kids. That was fun. I love that. I love those stories. I like the way Samuel expanded what we heard in our book by talking about that radical, generous hospitality that Abraham and Sarah showed to the visitors. Here's Abraham and Sarah out in the desert in a tent, and these visitors show up from the middle of the desert, and Abraham and Sarah probably didn't have massive amounts of food and water and other things, oil to share, but they shared generously with these strangers. I wonder what that tells us about what God wants from us. Let's wonder together. Do you have your wonder cube? I'm going to toss mine up in the air and see what it lands on. You do the same. Woo! Okay. Oh, I wonder, what did the Bible story teach you? Hmm. I wonder what the Bible story taught you. The story taught me a couple of things. Never assume anything is impossible because God can do what seems impossible. And the other thing that I really, like I said, I took from that story is to be generous, to be hospitable, to welcome people, to welcome strangers, to welcome people who are different from me, to serve them, wash their feet, feed them, give them your best oil. I think that's really hard to do. We live in a culture where we want to make sure we have everything we need. So we hold it really tight. God reminds us over and over and over again in the stories about God's people that we are called to community, to share, to remember that there's abundance and that we don't have to be scared of not having enough, because when we all share, there's enough for everyone. So our craft today is super simple. It's not even really a craft. It's really just kind of a response time. If you have some Play-Doh, maybe you have a whole bunch of colors and tools and all kinds of things, and that would be super awesome and fun. And you can keep going with this even after this video finishes. I just have this one color, but I thought it would be fun. I thought it would kind of maybe help us think about the stranger to create those visitors out of Play-Doh. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. My supply situation is getting a little bit low. It's dwindling. I haven't purchased new art supplies in some time because of, everything that's been going on. So I just have this color and it's a little bit sticky, but I'm going to make it work. I think I'm going to make 3 tiny visitors. What are you going to make? My visitors are all going to be this kind of fuchsia purple color because that's the color I have. And we really don't know what they looked like, right? Because it's a story from the Bible. So this is just what you imagine those visitors to look like. I wonder if those visitors had names. And I wonder if they were boys or girls. I think we often think of stories in the Bible as really only having men, grown-up men in them, but that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of women and children in the Bible as well. We don't always hear about them because the men are the ones that wrote those stories. But they were there. And this story just says visitors. So it could have easily been either or both. And I wonder where they came from. Do you think they were hot, hungry, and tired? Or do they think they were like some kind of mysterious, miraculous God thing where they just appeared out of nowhere to give Abraham and Sarah that message? I wonder. I think a lot of that story is really about having faith, remembering that God can do what seems impossible. Sarah laughed. Do you ever laugh in a way that's not very nice? Yeah, right. I think that's how Sarah laughed in that story. But later, I think she laughed with pure joy. Here's one of my visitors. It looks like one of our people of God. I'm trying to see where I could put it for you to see. I'll put it right here. Look, I can even make him stand up. Hello. Hey, friend. Okay, let's see. My next visitor. What are you making? Are you making big ones? Maybe just heads? Or very detailed? My sister used to love to make very, 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 very detailed Play-Doh creations. And then she would save them. They were so cool. Like, I remember one that she left at my grandparents' house that she made over there. It had like a little grassy scene, and a princess was tied to a tree, and there was like a dashing prince with a fancy hat that came to save her. I mean, it was tiny, y'all. The whole thing was this big, but it was so detailed. You know how Play-Doh is kind of weird when you save it and let it dry? It kind of cracks or falls apart. And that one stayed together. I remember that being in my grandparents' kitchen for ages. Okay, here's another one of my visitors. It's two. Hi. Hi, Otter. Ooh. There's two. I got one more visitor to make. Like I said, if you want to continue working with Play-Doh and thinking about this story, you could make Abraham and Sarah. You could make the tent. That would be fun. You could use your Play-Doh creations inside of like a fabric tent, or use some of your, if you have any little like houses or things that you use with your toys, you could recreate this whole story of Abraham and Sarah traveling through the desert, along the river, and up into the new land where they stayed, their tent and their animals and their servants. The visitors come and Sarah laughs. We'll see next week what happens next in the story. All right, this guy's got his arms out really wide because he's feeling so welcome at the tent of Abraham and Sarah. That's my third visitor. And here they are. Did you know that for children, play is like work? When we play and we wonder and we're curious and we play, we practice things like practicing the story of Abraham and Sarah with toys, with playtime. That's like work for kids. And I think it's good for grown-ups too. It helps the story become ours because it is ours, because we are part of the story of the people of God. I'm so thankful to be able to continue this time with you all. I just love that there are other ways that we can be together. And this is one way to be together. And being together is always good. Our spiritual practice for today is exploring faith through God's promises. Don't forget your children, your celebrate faith. Your celebration chart. These are all ways that we can just remember and notice that we're doing good things for ourselves and others and for the earth. And to notice that God is doing big things in our life and God is with us. Our spiritual practice is to hold up your pinky and link it with your sibling or your parent that might be watching with you and say, God goes with you. And then whoever you're linking pinkies with turns to you and says, God goes with you. So let's do that together. But this time I'm going to pretend I'm linking my pinky with you. God goes with you. Now you say it. Thank you. I hope that God goes with you this week and that you can feel God's presence, that you'll see a rock and remember to have solid faith, that you'll see the stars and remember that God is with us everywhere we go and that God keeps promises. Have a wonderful week. Peace be with you. God be with you. Love you guys. See you next time.